Joe, if you want
to... we want to welcome everyone to our Monday Night Wellness webinar where we discuss all kinds of things on creating healthier lives. And this evening, we are talking about joint health, a natural approach. And our presenters this evening will be Barb Lagoni, a nutritionist, her degree from Cornell, and Rusty Ost, a pharmacist. And so I'm eager to hear what they have to share with us this evening.
Indeed. Well, welcome everybody. Well, we did a little research about the incidence of arthritis and joint issues. Interesting, 52 million adults in the United States report being told by a doctor that they have some form of arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, gouty arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia. 1 in 5 adults in the United States reports having a doctor-diagnosed arthritis. 1 in 5. And arthritis affects, I have an extra I in there, affects 50% of the population over 65 and a third of folks from 45 to 64. So it's, I remember, I couldn't find a more current statistic, but I remember when the Pain Relief Complex came out, I think at that time we were told that 1 in 3 Americans lives in chronic pain. And so we're going to talk a little bit about where that comes from and what causes it and things that we can do naturally to help alleviate that. Something like 67 million Americans ages 18 or older are projected to have doctor-diagnosed arthritis. I'll be darned. And even little kids. So it's a serious issue and affects a whole lot of us. So there's an interesting diagram of a healthy joint versus one that's been damaged, where the cartilage is starting to wear down and the ligaments are loosening, and that important synovial fluid, which is the lubricant in the joints, that starts becoming damaged and inflamed. This is what a typical joint consists of, bones covered in the cushioning of that cartilage, and the synovial fluid then acts as a lubricant. And so when you have pain, it's usually caused by either overexertion, so we're going to talk to a runner tonight, or damage to the joint, or both. And so one of some of the risk factors, well, certainly as we age, there's more wear and tear on the joints. When we carry extra weight, you multiply by about 4 times your weight for the amount of pressure then that is put on your joints, especially your knees. Athletes have to be particularly careful. Runners have to be particularly careful. Some people have a family history, and when the muscles get weak around the joint, that can increase the risk of joint discomfort. That's one of the reasons I think physical therapy can be so important when people are starting to have joint issues. So there are 3 kind of categories that Rusty and I have sort of lumped our arthritis talk in tonight. One is osteoarthritis, the other is rheumatoid arthritis, and then there's a whole group of other arthritis issues that are autoimmune that Rusty calls arthropathies. Say that 3 times fast. Arthritis affects more than 46 million. It results in disability for 19 million people. Among chronic diseases, arthritis causes more disability than any other condition, including heart disease and diabetes and even back and spine injuries. So let's look at the numbers are pretty high on these things. Rheumatoid arthritis, for folks who have that's an autoimmune disease. One of the more common autoimmune diseases, and it would be last week if you joined us, Hannah was talking about digestive disorders, in particular Crohn's disease. That's one of the other conditions that would fall into autoimmune. But you can see rheumatoid conditions are way ahead of all the other categories. Osteoarthritis that affects 27 million folks. It's the most common type of arthritis. This is where you have degenerative joint disease, and this is where the cartilage begins to break down, the very important cushion that we have in our joints. And Rusty, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about, Rusty Ost is joining us tonight, who is a pharmacist, and I'm going to ask him to talk to us a little bit about traditional medical approaches to arthritis. Rusty? Rusty? Uh-oh. Joe?
I'm here. I was just wondering if he got muted.
I'm looking to see.
No, he's unmuted. But there were some funny sounds coming from.
Huh. Rusty?
June is there. We can't hear Rusty.
Can you hear me?
No,
now we can. Oh my goodness.
Well, I think I was muted.
No.
No, we're not on the dashboard. But anyway, hello, thank you. Okay.
All right. Well,
okay.
I will say again, thank you, Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
The typical treatment for arthritis from the traditional medical community is, of course, surgery, or is medication. Surgery is a last resort and not too successful, but as you can see from the slide, Tylenol or acetaminophen is a reasonably effective pain reliever. It doesn't address inflammation, and it causes huge liver problems because it's sort of like NutraSweet in the food that we eat. Everything had Tylenol in it. Every manufacturer put Tylenol in over-the-counter sleep aids, and so people were getting overdosed on Tylenol, and so it's a decent pain reliever, but not really. Then of course you have all of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents like aspirin and ibuprofen and naproxen, and they all relieve inflammation, and that's how they reduce pain. But all medications, whether it's something that's as commonly known as aspirin or Tylenol, they all have side effects. And so, as you can see, acetaminophen or Tylenol is the number one cause of liver failure. Ibuprofen causes kidney damage. They all affect the stomach and cause bleeding in the stomach. And then the National Institute of Health is now warning long-term naproxen users that they're at an increased risk of heart attack.
For even heart attack.
And so then you have the prescription analgesics. If you're going away from over-the-counter drugs to prescription drugs, and many of them, like Tramadol, which is Ultram, the stronger painkillers like codeine and hydrocodone are commonly used, but they're habit-forming. And the danger there is that once people get arthritis, they're going to live with it. And so as we start at a younger age, it's not a time to be taking narcotic pain relievers that are going to cause all sorts of issues down the road.
So let's talk about what we can do naturally to reduce stress on the joints and to reduce osteoarthritis pain, beginning by losing weight, of course. Rusty, you found a study. You want to mention that?
Well, there was just a study that was done that the people who took part in a diet and exercise program over an 18-month period of time lost approximately 11% of their starting weight. And that's not a huge amount, is it? I mean, a 160-pound person losing 16 or 18 pounds.
Yeah.
But those people reported a 51% reduction in pain.
Wow.
That's a pretty good trade-off.
So if you think about if the pressure on your knees is 4 times your weight, so if you weighed 100 pounds, going up and down stairs, you've added 400 pounds of pressure on your knees. If you weigh 200 pounds, then it's 800. I mean, it's amazing. So just losing a little weight and pulling that off of the knees, then you've reduced that by 4 times. So it's really a very helpful thing for your joints. And then exercise, because exercise strengthens the muscles and the tissues around the cartilage. And so it reduces that pressure on the cartilage. It reduces inflammation and pain then. So, many times people with arthritis, they will do aquatic kinds of things. They'll do walking if they can, to build strength, to burn calories is very important. And then the diet, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but most of the foods that Americans eat increase inflammation in the body. All the animal-based stuff, that's going to, the meat, the dairy, the red meat, the dairy, that sugar, wheat, all of that increases inflammation in the body. It's what Americans eat in very large amounts. The one category that Americans eat the least, but that reduces inflammation the most, are fresh vegetables. And so always emphasizing that really helps with reducing inflammation all over the body, but particularly then with the joints. And then we're going to talk a little bit about supplementation. So there are the categories of foods we want to eat more of, much more of the fruits, and especially the vegetables, and whole and fresh as much as possible. And then there are many foods that have the healthy fats in it, like avocados, and some seafood and fish that have that the omega-3 fatty acids in higher amounts. They tend to be the oily tasting fish, more the sardines and the mackerel and the salmon, and so those kinds of fish. But I'll tell you, for me, we have significantly reduced the amount of fish that we eat because I really don't know how you get clean fish in today's world. And so that's become a bit of an issue. Nuts, especially walnuts, almonds, they can be useful. And then protein, to more that we move toward fish and poultry, but especially the plant-based sources, and the soy and the beans, those are really good sources, and that all helps reduce inflammation in the body. So, Alex, that brings us to you. We want to introduce Alex Schatz, who has quite a history of issues with his knees, and we've asked him to share that with us. And Alex, you've been a runner for a long time, right?
Yes, indeed, I have, and you can see there's some bullet points that you put up there, and I'm happy to kind of talk about them if you'd like me to.
Please do.
So first of all, that picture, there was an even better one that maybe someone in our group tried to get to you today, but that was actually at the Shaklee Conference in 2009, right after we became involved. So I'll just give you a little background there. Mm-hmm. But I am joining you tonight from Denver, and I'm joining you because there's a history of joint problems in my family. Just to give you a little background, my dad has been diagnosed with arthritis. My brother, who is younger than I, still in his 30s, has for a number of years now been taking a fairly strong prescription medicine for joint pain and even shaking. So I have been personally told that, I will probably develop arthritis, but the real key is to delay those symptoms. And I thought those statistics that you had earlier were really telling. What we are on a mission to do when there is a family history is to delay symptoms. So just to give you kind of run through my background, I grew up running competitively. I very much love running and was very good at it, but began having knee problems very early, and in fact began physical therapy probably in high school and definitely in college. Wow. And found that it didn't do anything. So I was chronically injured, and that led to a gradual decrease in my activity level, and to the point where I was basically living a sedentary lifestyle. So you see that there. About 2009, I really wanted to make a change, but it was so painful to run. In fact, it was even painful to walk that I really couldn't. I was stuck in this 10-year sort of slide into inactivity. We did become involved in Shaklee, and so developed a regimen of supplementing with the Joint Health Complex, as well as Omega Guard. And again, you had some great statistics about inflammation there, and Vital E as well. And began not only doing that, but exercising in the pool. And as you can see, that began in about 2009 and gave me the opportunity to say, well, maybe it's because I'm swimming that I really feel better. And maybe it's because I'm exercising regularly or just kind of have a better attitude that I feel like I can run, and actually started doing a little bit of running. So I, being the natural skeptic, cut joint health and everything out of my routine and found that really, because it's easy to skip your supplements, and I really found that I felt better because I was taking the supplements. So that personal sense of wellness was sort of the first proof that supplementing was really making a big difference. And it got to the point where in 2012, I was running at the top of races again. I was running a 10-mile race, feeling great. I was running in 4th place, I think, and fell. And in fact, it was so painful, I didn't think I was going to be able to get up, but I got up and finished that race, and then couldn't walk for about 4 weeks after that. Went and got an MRI, and ultimately had surgery where they found that I did not have an ACL left. In fact, probably hadn't had an ACL for years. So my second proof that something was going on with supplements was that I could do something that I couldn't do before, because I really was actually injured, and the level of health that I brought myself back to with the help of supplements was quite amazing. So just to finish the story off, I had surgery, rebuilt my ACL with the hamstring, and it was a slow recovery. That was about a year ago, but it finally not only gotten back in the pool and all that, but I did finish a 5K race with my son.
Oh, my goodness.
First, he beat his brother, and just went skiing for the first time in 10 years yesterday.
Wow. Oh, my. Yesterday?
Yep, just yesterday.
That's March, for heaven's sake. And so, but skiing is really hard on the knees, right?
It is. It was
and they
the first thing I cut out because it was so painful 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago that I quit skiing because I just couldn't take it.
Yeah.
So I guess
this is excellent.
Yeah, the finish of my story is, I think the proof is 3 different things. It's the sense of wellness. Sometimes you really are a skeptic like I am, and you got to prove to yourself that you can do something that you really couldn't do before. That was the second thing I noticed. And then this sort of scientific method of, I proved the negative hypothesis. When I wasn't using a supplement, I was worse off consistently than when I was.
Wow. Well, let's talk about some of those products that you were using, and there's your favorite one right there.
Yes.
Advanced Joint Health Complex, and this is quite a wonderful product. Rusty, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. First of all, let's mention that this is part of a 3-pronged approach to joint health that Shaklee has come up with, and the Advanced Joint Health Complex has the most concentrated form of glucosamine, but more than that, it's the safest form of glucosamine, because not all of us are as young as Alex, and for people who are older and are having joint pain, most glucosamine, almost all glucosamine products today are made with the salt of glucosamine that's the sulfate, and it's stabilized with salt, with sodium chloride. And so most people who are older are not looking for ways to add salt to their diet. So this is the most concentrated form and the safest form of glucosamine. It also has the minerals in there that are act as anti-inflammatory agents, and they also promote good bone health. And then the new advanced this newest form of the Joint Health Complex has boswellia in it, and boswellia is an herb that is an anti-inflammatory herb, and we will talk about that a little bit later. But it does produce relief in as little as 5 days. And so this kind of another knee picture from Barbara. And
it's really into the knees. I know.
and so, but this graphically shows you where the glucosamine works, where the trace minerals work, and where the boswellia works. And so that kind of gives you an idea. But you get, as I indicated, you get joint comfort in as few as 5 days, up to 28% faster joint comfort than claimed by a leading brand. More effective and safer, and it's shellfish free, and most joint products are not. It's vegetarian, and most joint products are not, and it's chondroitin free, and most products combine glucosamine and chondroitin is not effective orally. The last time I checked, there were no clinical studies that were showing glucosamine had any effect, chondroitin had any effect orally, and it does impede glucosamine absorption. That's why Shaklee is chosen to
and it's from a bovine source, which in today's an animal source, which especially in today's world, because we've already seen these, we don't really know the sources for beef-based products like that, and it's just all around. I was so glad that we have one that does not include that. So, Rusty, that kind of brings us to your story, which is a different type of joint issue than what Alex just described. Ankylosing spondylitis. That's a mouthful. Tell us about that.
Well, it's a disease that affects mainly males in their early 30s, and that's exactly where I was when I was diagnosed. We are aware, certainly, of a number of females who have had this disease. I had a pharmacy, a kid that I worked with, and we were kids back then. We're not now. His wife had it, and she was bedfast. She couldn't get out of bed. And I wasn't bedfast, but when when we were introduced to Shaklee, I was not quite 40 years old, and I couldn't get out of bed in the morning without help. I couldn't get dressed without help. I limped. If there are any Gunsmoke fans listening, I was called Chester by my coworkers, and so I had no energy. It's just a long story, but the person who sponsored us into Shaklee said two things that caught my attention. One is that I could have my arthritis and feel bad, or I could have my arthritis and feel good. And once a person gets arthritis is a non-curable disease. And so you get it, you die with it, but you don't have to die a slow, painful death. And so when I was told I could have my arthritis and feel good, that kind of caught my attention. And the other thing was that I was told everything was guaranteed, even the membership, and I was guaranteed to feel better in 30 days. And so those two things made me realize that if I tried the stuff and it didn't work, at least I could get my money back, and the guy that sponsored us would leave us alone. And so that's why we got started. And I began with the Vital E and the protein because that's what everybody started with 40 years ago. And I slowly added the other supplements as I learned about Shaklee and as I learned about nutrition. Pharmacists 50 years ago weren't taught nutrition, and today they're hardly taught any more than we were 50 years ago. But I studied it, and I learned about it, and I slowly added things. Calcium was a big help to me. Alfalfa was a great big help. And so, do I still have arthritis? Yes, I do. Do I still have bad days? Of a few, very few. It helps to live where it's 82 rather than 2 below. But now my bad days are much better than my good days used to be. And so I feel good. I have energy. I can exercise. I can live what I consider to be a normal life. And I attribute supplementation to allowing me to do that.
Well, let's then take a look at some of those supplements and see the ones that seem to help you the most. So there's that trio that you were talking about.
Yeah, this is the first place people can start because this provides some relief while the other products start to work. And I don't know if people have used this, but it's instant. It's instantaneous. It really works well. It penetrates deep. It has not an offensive odor, but even that odor goes away in a very, very short time. It's non-staining. It's non-greasy. All of those things that you would expect from a top-notch company. But it's really a good product, and it, like I said, it gives people relief while the Joint Health Complex and the Pain Relief Complex start to work. And keep in mind that the Joint Health Complex is rebuilding cartilage, and sometimes people have worn it away over a 40-year period, and to expect it to come back in 40 hours is not realistic.
No, and that should say mild menthol aroma. Okay, so the first one is this that joint and muscle pain cream, which is it's wonderful, and it's like a really high quality hand cream. If you haven't used any of the Shaklee Emfucell skincare products, it penetrates just like those do. That's why I always say it's like my favorite. I usually dislike almost every hand lotion I've ever used, except that Shaklee hand and body lotion, because it absorbs instantly. It's never sticky. It's never greasy. It's the same thing with the same technology on that joint muscle pain cream. And then the second. I guess third then, part of the trio is the Pain Relief Complex. Tell us about that, because this gets into a little bit of biochemistry here.
Absolutely. This is what the test will cover at the end of this webinar.
All right.
COX-1 and COX-2, and there are others, but COX-1 and COX-2 are cyclooxygenase enzyme inhibitors. And so the cyclooxygenase enzymes are involved in the prostaglandin synthesis pathways, and Pain Relief Complex contains boswellia that we talked about in the Joint Health Complex, but it is a natural COX-2 inhibitor. And the advantage that boswellia has over some of the prescription and non-prescription non-steroidals, the aspirin, naproxen, Aleve, Motrin, all of those things are all non-prescription, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and then there are the prescription ones, and there's a bunch of them, and the new elegant ones are non-prescription, and they're labeled as COX-2 inhibitors, and Celebrex is a popular one, and yet what the drug companies would tell you, I guess, if you read the extra fine print, is that both the non-prescription and the prescription COX-2 inhibitors also inhibit COX-1. Now, COX-2 is bad, but COX-1 is good. COX-1 is the enzyme inhibitor that protects your stomach. And when your stomach isn't protected, these other products cause bleeding. And products like Celebrex, that is labeled a COX-2 inhibitor, doesn't cause bleeding nearly as often, but it still causes bleeding in the stomach. And so boswellia does not. So you have all of the good and none of the bad.
So here's the takeaway, is that the medications that reduce pain generally are reducing pain by inhibiting something called COX-2, and so the body doesn't feel the pain, and it actually reduces inflammation, right?
Yes.
Those drugs, but the side effect of that is that it inhibits a very important substance that your body produces, COX-1, that protect your stomach and other things. It's important, and that's why I remember, Steve Cheney, Dr. Cheney, when he joins us, the biochemist, and he always says, that's the problem with every drug, is that there's always some side effect that you really don't want, and so when you can get natural things to give you the same effect as a drug, it's always wonderful to start there. Well, then, Alex, you mentioned the omega-3 fatty acids, and then there's also the omega-6. And so, Rusty, tell us about essential fatty acids, because they're both important for reducing inflammation.
They are both important for reducing inflammation. They should be consumed on a 2-to-1 basis, 2 omega-3s to 1 omega-6. And these are naturally occurring anti-inflammatory products, and once again, they get involved in the prostaglandin synthesis, but they have all kinds of good benefits in the body. They help reduce heart disease. They reduce triglycerides. They have an amazing effect on cholesterol. They reduce total cholesterol, yet raise the good cholesterol while lowering the bad one. Great for eczema and people that have psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. The omega-3s and the omega-6s are wonderful. Anyway, they're very good because they reduce inflammation.
Very good. And so you mentioned prostaglandins a few weeks back when we were talking about heart disease, and you shared your really very dramatic and exciting heart disease story. And you told us then about the 3 types of prostaglandins in the body. Can we walk through those quickly?
Sure. They are prostaglandin E1, E2, and E3. Prostaglandin E1 is a good one because it makes blood slick. It's not a blood thinner like warfarin and aspirin and some of those. It doesn't shorten it doesn't lengthen blood clotting time, but it does make the blood cells slicker so they don't stick together. Reduces inflammation, and the thing about prostaglandin E1 is that gamma-linoleic acid that is found in Shaklee GLA increases the amount of this beneficial prostaglandin in the body. Prostaglandin E2 is the bad guy. It does the opposite of what E1 does. It promotes a platelet aggregation. It increases the risk for heart attack and stroke because of that. Causes the kidneys to retain sodium. Causes inflammation. And so you don't want to promote the formation of prostaglandin E2 because it's pro-inflammatory. Prostaglandin E3 has similar functions to prostaglandin E1, and it is produced from the omega-3 fatty acids that are found in Omega Guard. And the advantage Omega Guard has over the other fish oils, beside purity, is the fact that this is a combination of several omega-3 fatty acids, and it makes it much more beneficial. So, but as a rule of thumb, 2 omega. Well, in Shaklee words, we'd say 2 Omega Guard for every GLA.
Got it. Yeah, I'll put that on the slide. And understand that the prostaglandin, the bad prostaglandins that increase inflammation, come primarily from animal sources, or sugar and wheat, refined carbs. So when you mentioned alfalfa earlier, that's one of your favorites.
It is, and it's sort of a I don't know if oxymoron is the right word, but what I have is an autoimmune disorder, which means that my body's immune system attacks my body and causes inflammation, which causes this ankylosing spondylitis that I have. Alfalfa in the herbal world, it should not work in autoimmune disorders, but it was it was probably the one thing that got me up and going, and I took reasonably large quantities of it. But as I was telling Barbara the other day, prior to Shaklee, I was taking 36 aspirin a day. So when someone said you might have to take 30 alfalfa, I thought, well, that's just a difference.
That's nothing.
That's white and green. And so it has a taproot that goes down 20 or 25 feet. So it has access to trace minerals that are not available in any other plant. It is really a good anti-inflammatory. So that means that any itis that you have, alfalfa is good for it.
Colitis, bursitis, diverticulitis, arthritis, exactly.
Yeah, spondylitis.
Spondylitis. And so, interesting about alfalfa, it was a human food in biblical times. That's a very, very healthy food. Okay, and then osteomatrix, you mentioned calcium was very helpful to you.
Calcium was helpful to me, and I probably took 2 or 3 daily values of calcium. And the National Institute of Health, or whoever it is that assigns daily values to products, is getting smarter, and they continually increase the amount of calcium that we need as adults. But and I hope I'm not offending anyone, but the American Dairy Association has sold the American public on the fact that as adults we are cross-species milk dependent. And you never see an adult horse nurse from a cow, but we are, as adults, supposed to nurse from a cow. And that just doesn't make a lot of sense. We lose the ability to assimilate calcium from milk, early in life. And so calcium is very, very important, particularly for young girls, because I read in a study that calcium concentration in females is highest in their early 20s, and it goes downhill from there.
Goes down, yeah. Yep. Okay, that brings us to vitamin C. And look at that knee.
Another knee.
But what I liked about this diagram is you see all the connective tissue, and that's what vitamin C is good for. Okay, do you want to say anything more about that?
No, just that it's excellent. It's really good, and it's really important. Calcium for the bones and C for the tissue that connects the bones.
And vitamin C, what I particularly like about that Shaklee sustained release C is it coats the whole vitamin C complex with natural gums and waxes from plants. So it slowly releases that vitamin C over a 5-hour period. Otherwise, vitamin C is water soluble, so it leaves the body quickly. So that's a wonderful thing. But you really see how fascinating that the knee is. And that brings us then to one of the recommendations for reducing stress on the joints is to reduce our weight if we are carrying extra weight. And the Shaklee 180 weight loss program is really quite remarkable. These products, there's an entire collection of products in this product line, but the ones that are smoothies and bars, those in particular contain an amino acid named leucine that the body uses to repair and rebuild muscle. And when you have when you have a high level of muscle and you have a low level of fat in your body, your metabolism is really burning calories well. And so this is a weight loss program that burns the fat, that builds the muscle. Remember that a pound of fat only burns maybe 2 calories a day, and a pound of muscle burns somewhere between 40 or 50 calories a day. That's why people do so well in this. Anything you want to add to that, Rusty?
No, just that you're right, and I hesitate to call this a weight loss system only because weight loss is temporary. I think it's really a good weight management system.
Very good.
And it allows people to manage their weight.
So there's our collection. The trio that Rusty mentioned, the Joint Health Complex, the glucosamine. Now that's for osteoarthritis. That is not used for the rheumatoid conditions. Joint and muscle pain cream and the pain relief complex. And then the others that we mentioned, the Omega Guard for the omega-3 fatty acids, that's the fish oil. The GLA, alfalfa, Osteomatrix, the vitamin C, and then the weight loss program. And for those of you who may be just becoming familiar with Shaklee products and just starting a supplement program, the most popular product that Shaklee makes is called Vitalizer. It's a daily strip with 6 tablets in it that contain a lot of the nutrients that we've just talked about, the omegas and the multivitamin, a B and C, and a probiotic. And so it's a great starting place. This month it happens that there's a wonderful promotion that allows for free membership, but when that isn't running, we love to start people on Vitalizer because we allow everyone to register as a member in Shaklee, which immediately gives you a 15% discount, and just by purchasing a Vitalizer, you can get a free membership, so it's kind of a nice starting place. And I think with that, it is a wrap, Rusty. Joe, any questions we need to field?
Sure, there are a bunch of them. A friend with serious rheumatoid arthritis is questioning taking Nutriferon for fear of stimulating her immune system even more than it already is. What is Rusty's opinion on this?
Rusty has an opinion on everything. This, however, is not an opinion. This is a fact. Nutriferon is not an immune system booster. It is an immune system modulator.
Oh, yeah.
And the best way I can describe that is that if you were taking a cross-country trip, in your car, it would be like pulling a big tank full of gasoline behind your car. And every time your car burned a gallon of gas, the tank that you're pulling would automatically refill the tank in your car so that your car tank was absolutely full of gas all the time. And that's what Nutriferon does. It keeps your immune system modulated, but it never stimulates it. And so if you're concerned about your immune system attacking your own body, you would not have to worry about that with Nutriferon.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's nice to know.
Yeah, and I will tell you though, I have a little different feeling about when starting somebody who have autoimmune conditions. Sometimes they have funky things happening with their immune system, and so that's why I like to start them on something basic like the Vitalizer and the products that we have mentioned. Now we're talking about autoimmune now, so that wouldn't be the Joint Health Complex. But I like starting them on those basics and getting their body in a healthier place and then introducing the Nutriferon. So totally agree with what you're saying, Rusty. It's just sometimes you have to start more slowly with the autoimmune folks. Any others, Joe?
What are recommended doses of Joint Health and Osteomatrix for someone with bad bone knees?
Well, it depends. I learned to say that from Barbara Lagoni.
Yeah.
It depends, and it really does depend, because it depends on how what their diet is, what other Shaklee supplements they're taking. I indicated that I took 3 or 4 times the daily value of calcium. I was probably taking 3 to 4 grams of calcium a day. And when I first started, anytime I had an X-ray, I had calcium deposits in every joint in my body.
Aww.
And after taking considerable amounts of Shaklee calcium over a number of years, like 5 or 6 or 7 years, all those calcium deposits were resorbed, and I no longer had any. And so that's what it took for me. Also, I wouldn't hesitate to take more than one serving of Joint Health Complex, because sometimes more than one serving is needed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can't overdose on that. Can't overdose on that.
No, and you have to remember, it's going to take time, and you can't take it for a week and expect results, and you also, Alex, can't take it for a week and then stop.
I agree.
Yeah.
Rusty, would you comment on, you just mentioned about having calcium deposits. I know sometimes people believe that if they have calcium deposits, it means they have too much calcium in their diet.
And that's what I was told by my physician, who was a personal friend, and after studying realized that it was the opposite that was true.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe we should put in a little caveat, Rusty, that two things. One is that you are using Shaklee calcium, which is not isolated calcium. The formulations of Shaklee calciums have varied a little bit over the years, but they've always included all the minerals that you need for the matrix of the bone, but also for proper absorption, including vitamin D. And the other is that you were also taking alfalfa. And alfalfa, it makes the blood more alkaline. And that seems to help with calcium absorption as well. One of the things that we're aware of with bone density issues is that Americans eat a lot of foods not only that increase inflammation, but they're very acidic. They make the blood acidic, and then there's a tendency for the body to pull calcium out of the bones to alkalize it. And so all that wonderful alfalfa that you were taking, especially in the beginning, because when you started, we didn't have Joint Health Complex, and we didn't have pain relief. We didn't have any of these other products.
That's right.
So it was you really, I think, were doing some, and you were a big meat eater. For those of who heard your heart session a couple of weeks ago, you were big meat eaters because you were from Nebraska, and so you were improving your body chemistry in a whole lot of ways by eating all that alfalfa and calcium. It was probably the best thing you could have done. No, very
I agree.
Good. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything
Do you want a
else,
couple
Joe?
more?
Sure. Okay. Ahead.
I have degenerative disc and inflammation. I am using Vitalizer and wondering which supplement to begin with.
Well, Rusty, you're gonna.
How much pain?
Well, discs are cartilage.
Yes.
Right, so absolutely Joint Health Complex, and then anytime you have pain, you have inflammation, and so lots and lots of, for me, I would do lots and lots of omegas, Omega Guard and GLA. Even vitamin C helps reduce inflammation. So try to reduce the inflammation, and then Julie had asked earlier about rheumatoid arthritis. Diet does play a very significant role. And so, moving away from red meat and dairy and cheeses and sugar and wheat, and moving more toward and emphasizing the vegetables, very, very important. You start alkalizing the body, reducing inflammation all over the body. It's amazing what a difference that makes. What do you want to say, Rusty, to that?
Nothing.
Oh,
I think you did a good job.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing I can add.
Can someone with autoimmune thyroid disease take Nutriferon?
When you have autoimmune disease, I personally would recommend start with the gut and the diet, the Optiflora, the Vitalizer stuff, reducing inflammation. It's really hard for people, generally speaking, to change the way they eat. It's hard, I get it. And so starting there and getting the body, so getting the immune system in good shape. And then, one of the ways to test it, Rusty, is most people do not have a reaction to Nutriferon who have autoimmune conditions. But I've had one or two who did initially, then they backed off of it, and they took more vitamin C, more vitamin E, more Optiflora, started working on, building their body, getting to a healthier place. When they tried Nutriferon again, they did fine on it. It just depends on the state of someone's health. Generally speaking, if you have an autoimmune condition, your health is not in a great place.
Sure.
I agree.
What do you suggest for a young girl who has cramps each month during her period?
Well,
GLA.
Yeah, GLA and Vital E and Optiflora. Be complex. I mean, you know me. Be complex is pretty much the answer to most of life's difficulties. But when I would have teenagers, I would always start with Vital E, B as in butterfly, and GLA, and now I add the Optiflora. And I've had, in fact, I don't know if I shared this, but Kylie Hinkle had a friend who was having severe, heavy bleeding. She was only like 33 years old, and the doctors were recommending her have a hysterectomy. She was 33 years old, and she went on exactly what it was. It's Vitalizer and GLA, maybe protein. I can't remember, but it was like just a couple of things. In 1 month, it corrected. She had a hormonal imbalance. It's really interesting. So it's all, I mean, Rusty, I've heard you say this a million times, but always try the natural things first, because they
absolutely
come without the side effects.
Can I take alfalfa during pregnancy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the healthiest things you could take.
What about herniated discs? Can supplements help, and which ones?
Same thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things, if you're out of alignment, if you've had an injury, that's where, these wonderful chiropractors and napropaths and, I don't know, do physical therapists work on that too? But sometimes you just need to get realigned. But in the meantime, if you have a bulging disc, you've got inflammation.
Yeah.
So that helps with the pain.
And it seems to me that this person says that a protein supplement was an important part of my joint health improvement, but I didn't hear you mention this product.
Well, we mentioned the Shaklee one, but you're right, because it was plant-based, right? So the energizing soy protein, the Shaklee 180 bars and smoothies, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up, because if we're moving away from animal-based meats and protein into the more vegetable ones, that's where energizing soy protein is fantastic, as well as Shaklee 180. Good point.
And here's someone suggesting magnesium is very helpful for cramps, which is true. Well,
good.
The questions are coming in fast and furious.
Yeah, that's a lot of. Well, thank you for your question. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, Rusty, and thank you, Alex, for your story. So we know Mr. Skeptic over there. I love that you proved it to yourself. It's really good. Thanks for sharing that with us. Thanks, Rusty. We'll see you again, and thanks, everybody. See you next week.